Hello and welcome to this tutorial series for the Isimple product for DAZ Studio. Now, the idea of this product is that we are going to be using new base shaders that are going to be much easier to use than the default DAZ iRay Uber shader that ships with DAZ Studio. So, in order to see this, first we need some sort of object with surfaces. So what I want to do is I want to come over here to my Smart Content, come over here to Props, twirl that open, and I want to come down here to Other, and I'm going to go ahead and get the material ball scene. Everyone has this, so you should be able to do the exact same thing. I'm going to double click this. And what you can see over here is that I have in my Surfaces tab, I have the outer sphere and the stand selected. And you can see that right now, both these guys have the DAZ iRay Uber shader on here, or at least a version of it. I think it's a slightly older version. But you can see all the parameters here. There's lots and lots of parameters. Basically, the parameters stop right here, but you can see that there's a lot of parameters, probably about 30 parameters all told for this particular shader. This is a lot. Now, if you're using a product like Substance Designer or Substance Painter or any other PBR material generation type software, usually you're going to be using the PBR metallicity roughness model, and you're pretty much only going to need 4 different slots for your textures that are output from those programs. Now, we could see these slots over here. We see metallicity. That's one of the slots that you'll need to fill. And then you can see over here that we have base color. That's another slot that you're going to need to fill. And then down here, we would have glossy roughness, which is another slot that you would need to fill. And then usually down here at the bottom, we would also fill the normal map slot. So those are the 4 slots that you need. But you can see that you actually have to do some scrolling in order to do this. And this is a lot of wasted energy if you're just going to be using the same 4 slots over and over again. So what I did was I created a product that's going to make this much simpler for creating these types of materials that come from those types of texturing products. So if we come over here to the Smart Content, we come over here to Shaders, and we twirl this open, and we come down here to iRay. We're going to see all of the various different iRay shaders. You can see there's the iRay Uber base that I was talking about. And if we scroll down to the I portion of this alphabetical order, you can find that there's Isimple, and you can see there's 4 different versions of the Isimple. There's the Isimple, and then there's the Isimple plus emitter, the Isimple plus translucency, and the Isimple plus volume. The idea here is that if you need something above and beyond what the basic 4 slots can give you, then these guys should help you get those results. Now that said, they're all very greatly simplified from what we're seeing over here with the iRay Uber shader, so they should speed up your workflow and also make it much easier for people who are new to iRay to understand how to get the results they want without wading through a lot of conflicting different settings, which is the problem with the iRay Uber shader. It's a great shader. It just has so many parameters, and a lot of the parameters contradict one another. When you apply one parameter, it can often cause other parameters to stop working. This can be very confusing for users. So the Isimple is going to help that problem. And the way we're going to use this is we're going to come over here and we're going to go ahead and double click on Isimple, and it's going to keep the properties of this. Now, before we see that, I just want to come over here and quickly render this real quick so that you can see the results that we're getting, because I want to show you that the Isimple is going to keep the exact same results. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit cancel to keep that and say yes. So that's the render that I'm currently getting with this material. And now what I want to do is I want to come over here and just double click to assign the Isimple to this material. So you can see there it is. And now I've only got 4 slots: metallicity, base color, roughness, which is the glossy roughness, and the normal map. And everything else are just settings that control things like your UVs and whatnot. So they're not really material parameters so much as just sort of general parameters. Now that said, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and render out a second version just to show you that this is the exact same result. So I'm going to come over here and click this, and you're going to see that I get the exact same results. So there I go. I'm going to go ahead and just hit cancel, because we don't need that to render anymore. I'm going to come back over here, and I'm just going to put these guys side by side, and you can see it's the exact same results. So there are no penalties for using the Isimple in terms of getting the same results. You're going to get the exact same results. The only difference is you have less information to wade through in order to create your materials. Now let's just come over here and talk about the parameters real quickly. So you can see that there's a texture slot for these first 4, which are the ones that I was talking about: metallicity. Metallicity, 0 of metallicity is going to be a non-metallic surface. A 1 value for metallicity is going to be a purely metallic surface. Now, if you were to put a texture in here, black would indicate 0 and white would indicate 1. The base color is going to be something that you can either set via a color, and if I click on this, you can see there's my system color picker. I do recommend that if you're just going to use a regular color, that you keep the value below 225 and the saturation below 225 in order to minimize noise in your renders and to get more three-dimensionality from your surfaces. The reason why is because a value of 225 in RGB roughly corresponds to the whiteness of a white sheet of paper. And there aren't many objects in the real world that are going to be whiter than a white sheet of paper. So unless you have something that's definitely whiter than a white sheet of paper, then I would not set the value to higher than 225. Saturation of 225 is just one of those things where if you have it too saturated, it can also cause noise as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit cancel to get out of that. If you load a texture here, then you want to set the base color here to pure white of 255 RGB. The roughness is going to be 0 roughness is completely shiny, and high roughness is going to be completely matte. So that's 0 to 1. And again, if you load a texture here, a black roughness is going to be 0, and a white roughness is going to be 100% matte. So again, 0 to 1. Then the normal map is going to be something that you can just assign whatever you want to in terms of a normal map. Below this, we also have the ability to map the cutout opacity. What this is the opacity of the geometry. So you could make parts of the geometry have holes in them or whatever, and this is something that you sometimes get with certain materials. And then below this, we have your horizontal tiles, horizontal offset, vertical tiles, and vertical offset. This has to do with the UVs. So if you're just using a seamlessly tileable image and you want to tile it more, then you would control that via the horizontal tiles and the vertical tiles. If you want to offset the position of it, use horizontal offset and vertical offset. The roughness squared is something that you should typically leave on. When we're looking at shaders inside of Substance Designer or Substance Painter, it's using roughness squared by default. Now, if for some reason you know that you need roughness squared off, then you can turn it off using that button right there. If you have some sort of custom UVs, you can choose those from this drop down right here. And then you have your normal smoothing. So smoothing typically should be on, and you can set the angle to be whatever it is that you want. For most figure work in DAZ, you're going to want to have a fairly high angle of 89.9. However, for more hard surface objects, you may find that reducing the angle is going to give you better results. Typically speaking, for a hard surface type object, I tend to set my angle to something around 22.5. So that's basically the Isimple in a nutshell. And in the next video, we're going to begin looking at some of the variations on the Isimple and the additional parameters that they introduce.